Nisam se javljao neko vreme u vezi Puff Didija ili Didija Holmesa ili kako god već želite. Nisam hteo jednostavno da reagujemo na neke clickbaitove, lažne priče ili prazne priče, još bolje. Ali ovaj put imamo 4 nove informacije koje menjaju malo stvari. Prvo što je došlo do nas jeste da imamo nove optužbe za Puff Didija. Između ostalog, jedna od optužbi je od strane tadašnjeg maloletnog lica koje je tada imalo neverovatnih 10 godina samo. Pa ajde da odreagujemo prvo na to. Trenutno se nalazimo na kanalu TheQuartering, pa da čujemo šta on ima da kaže.
New information came out about maybe the most demonic human being to ever walk the planet. Far worse than Jeffrey ever was. And
Jeffrey
a lot
Epstein.
of questions are being asked, including by myself, specifically why on earth this guy was allowed to operate with impunity for as long as he was. I would say, I don't think, I mean, obviously I don't have evidence of this, so it's just my feelings. But it seems unlikely that nobody knew about this.
Gde ovo nema šanse da niko nije znao, ovo je mnogo ljudi znalo, ali je bilo sakriveno do daske. Ali znam šta će Jeremy iz Quateringa već da kaže. Da je Diddy Holmes bio pod zaštitom FBI-a, to je da je radio za njih, jer kako to već ide, verovatno su ga nahvatali u jednom ili par slučajeva i onda da bi to zataškali, počeo da radi za njih. A onda kad je počeo da radi za njih, nastavio je da radi to što je radio i pre toga i možda i još gore stvari je radio.
Now we have a new checklist that he had for the participants in his freak-offs, as well as new claims of...
Tako je, nove informacije, imamo spisak ko je bio učesnik freak-offova tih žurki njegovih. Jedno ime se pojavilo, koje je dosta interesantno, a to je njegova bivša Jennifer Lopez, koja, koliko znam, je izjavila da nije bila na tim žurkama.
Just a terrible, terrible thing that he did to someone who is very young. And this guy, deserves to be buried under the prison if this stuff is true. I've often said, hey, this guy feels like a burned federal asset. What does that mean? It just means that he was probably a Fed, informing the federal government, and he no longer became useful, and then they arrested him. It's exactly how I feel about Jeffrey. Mr. Jeffrey.
Ovo ima smisla, ovo ima puno smisla.
Jeffrey got a sweetheart deal from the FBI when he was first caught, and then he became too much trouble, too much trouble for them, and so they decided to arrest him. That does not mean that Jeffrey didn't do what they said he did, and that doesn't mean that Diddy didn't do what they said he did. What that means is the federal government, in my opinion, had at least some knowledge of it and allowed it to continue in exchange for something.
Jednostavno ne verujem u to da nisu znali. Ovoliko slučajeva da je bilo, mislim, sve još ovo treba da se dokaže da li je istina, ali posle ovoliko prijava da niko nije znao o ovome, to bi značilo da njihov sistem onda ne funkcioniše, a svi znamo da to nije tako.
Whether that's information, whether that's access, whether that's Kamala Harris endorsements completely out of left field from people like Usher who said they weren't political. In my opinion, many people in Hollywood entertainment are assets.
Njima treba sad ovi levaci da pobede da bi bili zaštićeni. Jer ako Trump dobije, ja mislim da su oni gotovi. Viš, jedina stvar o kojoj nisam razmišljao, ne znam zašto nisam razmišljao, s obzirom da se verovatno to dogodilo i Epsteinu, jeste da uklone Didija fizički, ako me razumete šta ću kažem, dok je u zatvoru. Naravno pod nekim izgovorom da je sam sebi naudio. Jednostavno ga uklone i ceo Hollywood je ponovo zaštićen. Kao u filmu, pa mislim u pitanju su hollywoodski glumci, sve jedno, tako da zašto da se ne desi tako nešto? Postoji šansa.
At some level or another. Some of them don't even know they are. But this stuff is nuts as authorities now launch an interagency operation at the federal jail where he's being housed. Investigators from various agencies launched an interagency operation on Monday at the troubled lockup in New York where he's being held. Investigators at the Bureau of Prisons and Justice Department Inspector General Office and other law enforcement agencies descended upon the Metropolitan Detention Center on Monday. The law enforcement operation is designed to, quote, achieve a shared goal of maintaining a, quote, safe environment for both our employees and those incarcerated.
On se žali na zatvorske uslove da su preloši. Sad, očigledno, imamo neke agencije koji ispituju sad sve to.
The agency said, prison officials declined to provide specific details. I think we know. I mean, I don't need to put a tinfoil hat on to at least say, boy, it sure was a coincidence that the cameras outside of Mr. Jeffrey's cell just happened to not be working the day he decided to take his own life, allegedly.
Upravo to.
Okay?
Upravo, da, kako se uvek desi, kad se desi nešto tako, to i kod nas isto, kad se desi nešto tako ozbiljno i naravno imamo svuda kamere i sve zabeleženo, odjedan put taj dan kamere nisu radile. Kako je to moguće, brate? Koliko je to glup izgovor više. To kad čujem, znam odmah da je laž u pitanju. Zašto ne bi radile kamere? Baš taj dan. Svim ostalim danima su radili.
My opinion that there are some shenanigans there.
Ma,
I can't prove
ko u
it.
filmu.
I'm not saying it's a fact. I'm just saying, boy, there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions. In terms of, how all that stuff happened, how it came to be. Now we're sending in a bunch of people to inspect the prison where he's being held. Gee, I wonder if something terrible might happen to him. Obviously, I have no evidence for that, and I'm not saying that I do, but this prison has long been the subject of a lot of questions. A correction officer was charged with doing some bad stuff, all sorts of stuff.
Bojim se da se stvarno dešava, da se ponavlja situacija sa Epsteinom. Ako se to desi, to neće biti dobro. Cijela moguća istina koja bi trebala da izađe na videlo može biti ugušena. Doduše, imamo te videokasete navodno negde. Sad, šta je sa videokasetama? Da li će to biti dostupno nekad javnosti? Nemam pojma.
They also have Sam Bankman-Fried there. All this kind of stuff. They have a lot of high value targets at this prison. So it's entirely possible. You see, those held at the Brooklyn jail have long complained about rampant bad behavior, dreadful conditions, and at the same time, they said they've been subject to frequent lockdowns and have been barred from leaving their cells. Good, it's jail. You would think a high-valued perp would get better protection on the inside until there has been a trial, unless certain people don't want a trial.
To je to.
I don't know.
O čemu pričam?
I don't know. It's very curious. Perhaps something very bad is going to happen. Tim, now there's been a list.
Da, imamo listu. Polako se klupka odmotava, ljudi. Ako nastavi ovako da se odmotava, bit će svega.
Lady Gaga, looks like Lady Gaga here, I'm not totally sure.
Kaka Lady Gaga? Kako možemo da vidimo kad nisi scrollovao dole?
Diddy Combs had a list of requirements about the weight
Lady
and
Gaga,
appearance
brate,
of
nije
women
bila tada ni
allowed
optice
to
kad su ovi
attend
bili.
his,
Vidi kako su mladi bili.
freak-off sessions.
Kad je pa ovo bilo?
The disgraced music mogul has said to enforce a strict 140-pound weight limit on guests to his infamous parties. The source told the New York Post other stipulations, including that the women be, quote, young and hot, and also be wearing revealing clothing. We will do a weigh-in if necessary. An organizer who said they worked with the start of 2004 and 2005. The girls had to be young and hot, so I always had a scale nearby in case I needed to make sure. The number was 140 pounds, but if the girl was really tall, there was a little bit of discretion involved. Other requirements included no flab, no cellulite, no overly pierced or tattooed,
Savršenstvo znači.
no short hair, the source added. Well, I thought he liked the short hair. Lawyer Tony Busby said that he represents 120 people who are filing lawsuits against the star, accusing him of terrible crimes. The freak-off organizer claimed that Diddy never asked the ages of those involved. It was don't ask, don't tell at the time. I was really young myself, and I honestly couldn't. I really thought we should be asking their age because of just drinking laws. I never stayed out around for these events, and I had no idea that the girls were expected to hook up with people. I disagree. I'm sure that you had at least some idea. I'm sure that you knew.
To sad već počinje da me muči malo, zato što sad ispada da su sve bile žrtve, kao da niko nije tamo dolazio dobrovoljno, kao da baš niko nije znao o čemu se radi. Verujem da je bilo takvih ljudi koji nisu znali o čemu se radi i nisu hteli da rade to što su trebale da rade, jel? Ali verujem da je bilo i onih koji su hteli to da odrade zarad nečega i verovatno su i dobili to i sada opet hoće da uzmu pare. Siguran sam da takvih ima dosta.
No pants, no jeans, no flat shoes. every girl had to wear a party dress, preferably very short, just enough to cover the cheeks, but longer than mid-thigh, but no longer than mid-thigh, and have lots of cleave. I mean,
kakvi su tu uslovi za žurku, bre, šta je ovo, čoveče? Kao moraš specifično da se obučeš, specifično kratko da se obučeš. Mislim, vidi, kad dobiješ takve specifikacije, ako odeš opet tamo, onda, šta da kažem, kao što sam pre neki video rekao, to po meni nisu žrtve prave.
This is some very, very strict rules. Every single one of them had to be wearing stilettos. That one, there was no exception. High stilettos. Another source described a shady offer she received to go back to Diddy's home after she performed at the rapper's VMA after party. I didn't go, the dancer said, who was 20 at the time, but other girls did, and then they wouldn't really talk about what happened. She claims that she was paid $250 for the dance performance and offered an additional $1,000 to go back to his home. It was previously reported that he had had many of his quote-unquote freak-off parties around major events. Well, yeah, I mean, no kidding. I mean, I don't think, look, again, I think I talked about this on the live the other day, maybe with Hannah Claire at 1 Eastern. I expected, I've not heard anything, when we were talking about the various, people that have participated in these parties with him, I was not under any delusions whatsoever that Hollywood people were degenerate. Music industry people were degenerate. I had no issue at all understanding that. It's their life.
Takođe.
They're adults. I also believe, again, it is also in my opinion, that many of these people who happen to be suing now were probably there willingly. They were probably there participating willingly, and now they're trying to cash in. I don't know that for a fact. That's just my opinion.
Mislim, vidjet ćemo, ali mora ih biti tako.
You're a woman or a man, and you subject yourself to clothing requirements, weight requirements, wearing revealing clothing at these parties, and you think, boy, that's probably normal. And you go in anyway. A lot of these people are adults. But now,
ma šta se, ljudi bi svašta uradili za slavu, za pažnju, za novac. Nemojmo se zezati, čoveče. Možda su čak i kontali da će biti nekog tako opštenja, da kažem, ne znam više ni kako se izražavam na ovom YouTube-u, ali možda nisu bili svesni da će biti tako žestokog opštenja, da će ih razvaliti i baciti ko smeće na kraju. Možda i toga bilo, ne znam.
Someone who was 10 has levied a claim. Somebody who was on the Making the Band show with him. The other suit claims he also did it to someone else who was, too young. Again, these people were apparently asked, don't you want to be famous? I mean, yikes. I
sve na tu foru, zar ne želite da budete slavni, morate proći kroz jedan ritual Didijev da biste bili uspešni. Neće biti lako, ali ako ste voljni da pokušate, eto, pružit će vam priliku. Šta je njemu, brate, da da, ne znam, koji keš nekoj osobi, čisto radi njegovog užitka.
I mean, there is no way this guy's ever seen the light of day.
No. Ili nikad više neće izaći iz zatvora, ili ga više neće biti. Posle svega ovoga, jedno od ta dva, mislim, nema treće.
Sheer number of lawsuits being levied against him.
Ako je sve ovo
istina. This is for sure the second time it's been somebody practically in the single digits of age. All these 20...
Da, skoro pa jednocifreno, znači 10 godina za malo pa jednocifreno. Zamislite, dokle to išlo, čoveče, bože, kako monstruoznost, bre.
So 18, 19, 20-year-old chicks, I expect knew what they were getting into. If you want...
Sve posle 18 su samostalne osobe i same za sebe odlučuju, tako da, ali što se tiče maloletnih lica, to je već druga priča.
Sort of evidence that they were forced to do anything against their will, okay, I'll hear it, but all these women coming out of the woodwork now to sue him, I think they knew exactly what they were getting into.
Naravno, ukoliko su je okružili oni telohranitelji, ubacili je negde u sobu da nije mogla da mrdne i drogirali je, i to je žrtva, naravno. Sad treba sve te žrtve takve da se prepoznaju, ugomili sa onim lažnim. To je problem veliki, a toga ima 100%, ne možda nema.
Now there's a different, more sinister, part of this, when you're talking about people who are very young. People, in the single digits, who are now suing him. 120. This is wild. 25 people, by the way. Apparently, there's a list of 25 people who are too young to be participating in these type of events.
25 ljudi.
25 people.
Znači,
25 alone
25 maloletnih
were too
lica.
young to participate. Now, were they all 17 and 364 days? I don't know. But 25 of them.
Je baš tako.
This list of, this is demonic. This is absolutely insane. The question is how many of these are real?
Ma buraz, ali da su štitili čoveka koji je radio ovakve stvari, znači izeš ti taj sistem, ja znam da se svašta dešava u raznim državama, nije to samo Amerika, ko zna šta sve ima čoveče, mislim niko od nas ne zna. Ovako kriminalce da štitite i ovakve stvari da sakrivate, ovo je stvarno grozno, ovo je nevjerovatno, mislim ovo je već drugi veliki slučaj u Americi ovog tipa koji se dešava, zaista previše.
If they're all real, yikes, we may have maybe the most deviant individual ever.
Da.
How many of these people were there willingly and suddenly deciding they don't want to do that anymore?
I ko će da odgovara sada u FBI-u za ovo? Niko.
All the tapes.
Ko će da odgovara u vladi njihovoj? Niko.
Jeffrey, he's got tapes. Never saw one.
Da, eto, ni te trake nikad nismo videli, jel? I oni su imali isto, naravno da su imali. Bojim se da nećemo vidjeti ni ovo.
One never came up in evidence. His madam is in prison for providing, people to absolutely nobody because there's nobody on that list. If you have 120 plus people suing Diddy, how come we haven't seen a single list?
Da, do sada, ali stvarno nismo ništa videli, niti žrtve, imena žrtava, niti imena učesnika na tim žurkama. Niko se ne oglašava od Hollywooda, brate. Ovo je strašno, ovo je nevjerovatno.
Seen a single name of a single person named other than him.
Da, niko drugi nije spomenut još uvek, što je stvarno nevjerovatno, brate. Sve su za sada nagađanja, ništa više. Pretpostavke.
Tell me that he was the only one taking advantage of these people? I doubt that.
Okay.
So until I get names of people who are participating in these events, until I get names and not just lawsuits asking for money, it's going to be interesting. But this thing is spiraling very quickly out of control for him. And I in my opinion, he doesn't make it to trial.
To znači da misli samo na jedno, da će ga neko obrisati sa ove planete. To je njegovo mišljenje. Ja se nadam da neće doći do toga jer to je onda mogući kraj cele ove priče. Kraj odgovornosti za te ljude. Ali neki spiskovi su se pojavili u javnost, tako da ćemo imati reakciju i na to, da vidimo šta se dešava. Neki od poznatih ličnosti su se takođe javili da će se oglasiti povodom ovoga da bi sprali ljagu sa sebe i to ćemo da vidimo još. Tako da spremite se za još koji video što se tiče ovih stvari. Ne znam kako ću ih rasporediti, pošto ima dosta sada, pored onoga što sam već zamislio u programu kod mene na kanalu, ali u svakom slučaju budite stand by, kliknite na like, kliknite na subscribe, šerujte ovaj video drugim ljudima i ono što je najbitnije, aktivirajte ono zvonce da vas obaveštava kad god izađe moj novi video, da biste znali i bili upućeni u nove informacije koje imamo. Za sada to je to od mene, čujemo se, vidimo se, bye bye.